I think the big problem this country has is being politically correct. I've been challenged by so many people, and I don't frankly have time for total political correctness. And to be honest with you, this country doesn't have time either.
Yes, political correctness is out. American exceptionalism is back, ready to re-empower our republic as one nation under God by restoring our unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives, with your host, John Matthews.
The latter-day prophet, vying against the hypocrisies of our time.
And Joe Hakos.
You want answers!
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
The Conservative Syndicate is comprised of some of the most informed pundits and activists available today. Together we seek to tear down the imaginary wall of separation between church and state through education, information, and engagement on the religion of politics and the politics of religion. And now, your hosts of the nationally acclaimed, globally syndicated Conservative Syndicate, John Matthews and Joe Hakos. And how are we doing out there all across this great land of ours and around the world? It's time right now for the Conservative Syndicate coming to you live right now. Globally, what is it? Nationally acclaimed, globally syndicated. That's the byline. Real conservative talk from real conservatives. We're glad to have you with us today. We got a good show for you today. A couple of interviews. We're going to have Mark Hyman from one of these organizations with a really long name. Coordinator. He's the coordinator for the conservatives concerned about the death penalty. And we're going to have him on here. I was going through the website here, and I've got some things I really want to ask this guy because I have to be honest with you. I have mixed feelings, mixed emotions about the death penalty. But one thing as reading their breakdown as to their reasoning and everything, it sounds very much like liberal thinking. It doesn't sound like conservative thinking to me. So we're gonna put Mr. Hyman to task today, and see if he can convince us that the death penalty is not the best thing. It doesn't fit conservative principles. That's our argument. So we're going to see about that. Scott Faulkner, our panel contributor, will be on with us the second hour. We're going to revisit the topic of Russia yesterday that we began, and hopefully evolve into the conversation about the UN resolution on Israel that our current president decided that he was just going to look the other way, nod, nod, wink, wink, and just see if he could help the UN. You know, he's preparing that resume to take over world domination at some point in time. Mark my words, the mad prophet has spoken. Having said that, let's get my partner in crime on here, Joe Hakos. How are you doing today, Joe?
I'm doing all right, John. Glad everybody's out there. Glad they're listening. It's good to have them there. It's going to be a fun time today. As we had Chucky Schumer and Nancy Pelosi out there. Here, let me just play this real quick, John. This ought to fit real good today for our audience today. This is Nancy Pelosi today, and this is how the Democrats are thinking. This is what we can expect out of these lovely individuals, these lovely Americans, how they really feel about us. And she's talking about Obamacare. Okay, so here we go. Oh, hold on. Here we go.
If there had been no other reason for us to pass the Affordable Care Act, one compelling reason was cost. The cost to the individual, to families, to businesses, small and corporate, and to the public sector was totally unsustainable. So we had three goals. One was to lower cost, other to improve benefits, and third to increase access.
Lower costs, improve benefits, and increase access. That's what the Democrats think they've done with Obamacare. John, what do you think of Nancy there? Is she on this planet or is she somewhere else in the universe?
Well, you know, I've always said Nancy Pelosi suffers from overdoses of Botox. This woman, her brain is as swelled up as the rest of her face. And but this is going to be the narrative, see, because really, this is what it comes down to. Let's think about this. Let's put this in perspective. As much as the Democrats probably at this point maybe lament or regret putting so much support behind Barack Obama and basically giving him carte blanche rule for the last 8 years over the direction of the country. They have, to use their own phrase, they've bought it. They bought Obama. And now to have his quote-unquote landmark legislation overturned and done away with, whether or not it's failing or not, and we know that it is. I mean, all the numbers tell us it is. All the insurance companies that bought into this lie that the government was going to offset their losses, and now that everybody's taking a hit, whether they're an insurer or an insuree, that kind of thing. They really have to do everything they can to protect Obama's legacy, because if the landmark legislation of his dies, everything else dies with it. They have no hope anymore. Their hope of keeping America alive in the progression of liberalism and progressivism, it's really going to take a major hit. And so it's kind of like Obama really, whether he understands it or not, has become a frenemy to the Democrat Party. They can't deny him because they hitched their wagon to him, but they really don't want him any more than they really didn't want Hillary Clinton. So I just think they're just going to do everything they can. Chuck Schumer's out there floating. He's done a rework of Donald Trump's mantra, and he says Donald Trump's administration is going to make America sick again.
Exactly. Yeah. So America's sick again. So my mantra is we have our listeners out there. If you have a Republican legislator, you got a member of the House or a senator, you need to let these individuals know that they should continue with the path of repealing Obamacare. Do not let these people. Don't be afraid of these people. Don't be afraid of their little mantra. Make America sick again. Make America. Obamacare is just wonderful for America. If it was wonderful for America, it would already have been working. He's had 8 years to make it happen.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. It's never going to work. And we do not need the government in our healthcare business. It's like we don't need the government in our education system. We don't need them in our healthcare. It's time the Republicans have the House, the Senate, and now they have the White House. It is time to get rid of it. No more show votes. No more playing around. Do it. Straight up, do it.
And here's the deal. The Republicans always had that one feather in their hat that none of them voted for Obamacare. And if they now turn around and try to, I think, even repeal and replace, it should be repeal, period. There shouldn't be repeal and replace.
No replacement, repeal it. There's nothing in the Constitution that says health care should be run by the government, period. Repeal it.
In fact, every implication of the Constitution is that the government should have nothing to do with health care. And this is up to the states. Again, my whole thing is a return. What we need is a return to federalism, where the states do what they want to do, depending on what their citizens or their residents tell them they want. So if they want state-funded or state-supported health care or state-subsidized health care, well, then they put it on a ballot, they vote on it, and they pay the taxes. Okay, so there it is. But the idea that the government mandates, the federal government comes in and mandates because they think, of course, that within their socioeconomic paradigm, that they're doing everybody a favor. And they're not doing anybody a favor. I guarantee you it's not less affordable, better care, less affordable. I mean, unless you're a male that needs maternity leave, okay, but the rest of it, nah, it's a bunch of crap and it needs to go. And let's just hope that the Republican Party remembers that in the beginning, they all voted against this. And now if they say, okay, well, now we have an opportunity to exert our government idea or our government ideology or our government overreach, then it's just 6 of one and half a dozen of another, because neither one of them is going to get it right.
Yeah, quit playing around with this. That's over 60 times they, quote unquote, voted to repeal it, and without a Republican in the White House, it didn't stand a chance. Well, now it has the chance. And I'm here to tell you, let's check this out. If Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer were the only Democrats in Congress, period, if they were the only two, they would stand up and use every damn effort and every tool that they have to go against the Republicans. They would fight tooth and nail. And that's what the Republicans better get a grasp on. They need to start fighting for the Americans that put them in office.
Yeah. Okay. We got to go to break. When we come back, we should have Mark Hyman with us from the Conservatives Concerned About the Death Penalty. So stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate. Don't go away. We're not arguing. We're explaining why we're right. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. Then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-790-5960. That's 1-800-790-5960. Again, 1-800-790-5960. Call now.
Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, auto pay, and paperless billing and other restrictions apply. If you can't see the difference, why pay the difference? Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Only Dish brings you the best in entertainment for less than $20 a month. Cut the cable and don't get directed. Switch to Dish because at just $19.99, Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. It's so simple. The same channels cost less with Dish. So since you can't see the difference, don't pay the difference. Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Get premium movie channels free for 3 months, starting at just $19.99. Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. Call now to save with Dish. Dial 1-800-600-1645. That's 1-800-600-1645. The same channels for less than $20 a month. Dish. Call 1-800-600-1645 for details.
Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardoso. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardoso Live Daily, Monday through Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decisions concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosolive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosolive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did.
Attention taxpayers. If you've received a notice from the IRS or state, do not ignore it. It's also a big mistake to try and handle your tax problem on your own. If you owe back taxes, it's a fact that the government has the power to take everything you own, including your home, business, wages, savings, and your freedom. But here's the good news. There's a special toll-free tax hotline set up especially for you. This tax hotline will tell you about new programs that are geared to help you dramatically settle, reduce, or eliminate what you owe. But you have to call now. Take down this number or put it in your cell phone. But call 866-761-0959. 1-866-761-0959. When you call, you get free information on how you can reduce or eliminate back taxes, including penalties and interest. You can also be helped if you have unfiled returns, a tax lien, wage garnishment, bank levy, or if you've been entered into a payment plan but can't make the payments. Don't make the big mistake in thinking you can ignore or handle your tax problem on your own. You can stop the collection process immediately. Call this special tax hotline today for free info at 1-866-761-0959. That's 1-866-761-0959. 1-866-761-0959.
And now back to the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives. All right, we're back, and this is the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives. I'm your host, John Matthews, along with Joe Hakos, and we have with us right now Mark Hyman, coordinator from the Conservatives Concerned About the Death Penalty. Now, I'll start the conversation off here by saying, first and foremost, I don't think we've ever discussed the death penalty on this show. Have we, Joe?
No, I don't ever recall discussing the death penalty at all on the show, actually.
No, and not in depth. I mean, we might have made some offhand comments in context with other things, but I was contacted by Mr. Hyman's representative here that and I went and checked their website out, and I thought, this would be an interesting topic because personally I have some mixed views on the death penalty, and I know Joe does too. So I thought we'd have Mark Hyman come out here. How are you doing this afternoon, Mark?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks so much for having me on.
Well, we're glad to have you. Glad to have you. You're actually breaching a topic that we haven't taken time to look at here, especially during the last 12 months with the election season the way it is. Everything was about whether the country was going to, crash and burn, or whether we were going to be given a window of opportunity to maybe turn some things around. Now, I'd like to start. I'm going to be honest with you here. We might put you a little bit on the hot seat here because Joe and I have some mixed views on this. And I was going through your website here, and I can say first and foremost, I really kind of understand where everybody's coming from in your organization. As I was reading through it, I'm going, you know what? I can understand the reasoning. I can understand how people can come to conclusions about it. But I think first and foremost, the thing that kind of grabbed me is that I find it hard to fit this idea of eliminating the death penalty within the ideology of conservative thinking. I think that's what grabbed me first and foremost. Where did you come to that conclusion that one feeds the other?
Well, for me, it was something that changed over time. I used to support the death penalty, and I've been working in conservative politics for years now. I was with the National Rifle Association as their field rep in Panama City Beach several years back, and I changed gradually. But what it boiled down to is I compared the death penalty to what I believe are conservative principles. I'm pro-life. I support fiscal responsibility and limited government. But when I looked at the death penalty, I saw a government program that repeatedly risks innocent lives. And it costs much more than life without parole, and it's led to tax increases, which we know is a cardinal conservative sin. But beyond that, is there anything limited about giving an error-prone government the power to kill you? I don't think so. In fact, I don't even trust the government to deliver mail, let alone make life and death decisions over its citizens.
Well, I definitely, that was the other side that grabbed me, the argument about the ineptness of government. I said, well, if there is an argument, there it is. The idea that the government can screw up anything. Give them something, I think it was Lewis Black who once said the difference between the Republicans and the Democrats is the Democrats say, the Republicans say, I've got an idea, and the Democrats say, and I can make it crappier. So it's like, yeah, I get that. But can you break down for us, because it doesn't, the logic, I'm trying to get my head wrapped around the concept here, or the thought, is the idea that it costs more to kill somebody than it does to keep them alive. How does that work?
Yeah, and that sounds counterintuitive. I have this discussion a lot as I speak at colleges and tea parties and Republican clubs across the United States. And the reason it is much more costly is because there's these different legal issues that are intrinsically related to the death penalty that are not involved in the life without parole process. For instance, the initial trial is usually many times longer than life without parole trials. Then there's actually an additional trial that most people don't know about, and it exists just to see if the offender can receive a death sentence. And all the while, these people who are accused are required to have double the number of attorneys that you normally see in life without parole. So you see this is getting really costly, and on the trial level, this has led to tax increases in many municipalities. But beyond that, you have to look at the appeals process, and there are 3 levels of appeals in capital proceedings, whereas there's only 1 in life without parole proceedings. So this is very costly, and then they're housed on death row this whole time. And death row, according to a recent study, is about twice as expensive as housing in a maximum security prison where people serving life without parole spend their time. So this leads to each capital case, each execution can be a few $1 million more than the full life cycle of life without parole.
See, it sounds like to me that what we're talking about, more than the taking of a life at this juncture, from just what you're telling me right now, is the system itself. It sounds like there needs to be some kind of reform in the system that would shorten this. I mean, the idea that you can, I understand it, because we have people out here in California where the death penalty is really, taboo these days. And, they're up for parole and they're going through appeals, and it's appeal after an appeal after an appeal. And it just drags out and drags on. And I can see that. I can see where the cost would be incurred on that. But to me, it just sounds more like we got to get rid of the lawyers.
Well, coming from a family of attorneys, I'd appreciate if you don't do that entirely. But what I would say is there's a thing called super due process that's required by the U.S. Supreme Court when it comes to death penalty cases. And this is enacted in hopes to make sure that we don't execute any innocent people. So when you shorten that appeals process, the risk to innocent life goes up. It's a bit of a catch-22. Now, you mentioned California and how the appeals process works there, but let me just give you a little juxtaposition. I live in Georgia, and we have executed more people in 2016 than even Texas. We led the nation. It was a bit of a dubious honor. But it took us a very long time to do this. One person was executed 36 and a half years after he'd been originally convicted. These are mandates that come down from the Supreme Court, and no matter how much our state legislatures may want to change it, we're beholden to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Well, you would think then within the thinking of the framework of the Constitution that says we're entitled to a speedy trial, that there would also be the same entitlement when it comes to passing the sentence. So if you sit there and say, well, somebody's sitting out there for 36 and a half years waiting to decide, whether they're going to execute him or not, that seems like a constitutional violation in that regard. Shouldn't there be some kind of framework that says, okay, if we don't decide by this point in time, then okay, it's kind of like, the old tradition of you hang a man, and if the rope breaks, then he gets away. He walks up and gets up and walks away, that kind of thinking. Is that something that anybody has ever discussed?
Well, you're talking about habeas corpus, I assume, and there are always habeas corpus claims brought up. In fact, there's a whole level of appeals dedicated just to that. But when it comes to quick and speedy trial, that has to do with the initial trials, not the actual appeals process. But let me give you an example. There was a guy by the name of Glenn Ford in Louisiana who was wrongly convicted and sentenced to die, and he went through this appeals process for years until 33 years after he was convicted, they found out, he's innocent. So thankfully they were able to release him, although he died of lung cancer shortly thereafter. But had you gotten rid of that appeals process, Louisiana would have killed an innocent man.
Oh, yeah, and if there was an argument presented within your organization here against the death penalty, I think that would be it for me. It would be, I would say, to have somebody innocent executed when they're not guilty of what it was they were charged with. That's certainly, and I can certainly see how that fits into government thinking. But you would think, if you've got so many lawyers involved and you got all this process and all this appeals, that you almost have to practice to screw that up. That if you're going through such a lengthy process, it just it seems like somewhere it should come out in a wash whether the person is really guilty or not. So that's where my conflict is. I'm like, yeah, I understand this. I understand the thought behind it, but I'm not so sure that it really fits within the framework of conservative thinking, in the sense that there are, in my opinion, certainly crimes that people should pay for with their life. And that is from a Christian conservative standpoint. A lot of people think that Christians are supposed to be pacifist on this stuff and say, we're not allowed to kill anybody. We're not allowed to take a life. That's up to God and all that other stuff. But there's a lot of scripture in the Bible that supports the idea that if somebody intentionally takes the life of somebody else, that they should pay with their own life as retribution. So that's where I kind of have the conflict, but I certainly see where you're at. Joe, you got anything?
I'm the same way, John. It's I understand. The wrongful death of someone on death row that was innocent. It takes 30 some years. My only thing is I have a real problem with the fact that where's the justice involved when someone has done something that's worthy of the death penalty, and yet they continue on for decades until they sometimes grow very old before they're ever even they might be on before they ever get to death row per se. I mean, they're in a segregated part, and then all of a sudden, when it gets closer and closer, and then they're going to go into the solitary part where these people are segregated away, so they're not out there because the state can't afford to have something go wrong with them at the time. I mean, as you said, the system is just. Again, it's just a systemic problem more often than not, I think.
Yeah. Got any comment for that, Mark?
I would certainly understand a lot of the points. And, I told you I used to support the death penalty too, primarily because I thought some people just flat out deserved it. And I thought that it deterred crime. And, I'm a Christian and I'm a conservative, and I'm in that order. And I'm very proud of my Christian roots.
Well, Mark, you know how it would deter crime? If we put it on primetime television, and each and every time we actually got to watch it, and some people would see it and then, oh my goodness, this individual didn't go sit in prison for the next 30 years of their life, and they actually got to go ahead and pay the price for it. You might not have people going out there so cavalierly taking lives of other people.
I feel quite confident that the death penalty would probably be repealed the next day if Americans saw that on a regular basis, or even a handful of times. But to go back to the point of we're talking about limiting the appeals process. Well, over 155 individuals have been wrongly convicted and sentenced to die since the death penalty was reinstated. So this is not something that is a rarity. It actually happens with increasing frequency because, again, this is our government, and it's based on the human element, which is mistakes will be made.
Well, and the difference like at the beginning of it, the mistakes are made. Sounds like, hey, right? Again, systemically, it's made at the beginning of it. You're trying the wrong people instead of actually getting the people that actually committed the crime.
Sure. The difference between, kind of the Old Testament biblical death penalty, God's judgment is perfect. Ours isn't.
Yeah, well, I get that, and that's where the paradox of it is that we understand through the Bible and some of the scriptures that are written that we are to some degree given that jurisdiction. Let me put it for lack of a better word here, where we are to decide by a jury of our peers whether somebody is guilty or innocent. And I certainly can understand to the degree that it can get really be screwed up. And I come back. You got a system of politicians with I think you mentioned in your website here, attorneys that are drunk when they're trying and asleep and this, that, and the other. What is it? Public defenders. I get all that, but I've always thought my framework of thinking has always been that the death penalty is a type of deterrent, and so if you eliminate the deterrent, as Joe is saying, you basically, to some degree, are licensing people to go out and commit crimes, and of course the paradox is, of course, as you say, the wrong people sometimes get accused and tried and convicted, and so there's definitely a major paradox there. But I'm not in favor. I think at this point in time, I would not be in favor of throwing out the baby with the dishwater, the bathwater. Is that the phrase I would use? Something like that. I think that there needs to be a hardcore look at in terms of reform of the system to somehow. I don't know if you could do that outside of the government. Maybe we could implement. I was thinking of a movie I saw a while back, Citizen Verdict with Jerry Springer. As Joe was saying, where they actually tried the people on TV and stuff like that. And I agree with you, Mark, that if people were witnessing this kind of stuff, it would probably be repealed. But then again, given what people are like today, I don't know. It might be a #1 rated show too. It's hard to tell these days because the moral fiber of the country is so frayed right now. So it's definitely a complex concept and ideology. And I like I said, I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm just saying I can't quite get my head around the idea that for the sake of I don't know, how do we the trade-off? Do we let hardened criminals, people that really deserve death and the justice behind that, to be able to absorb our resources, as you say, and just because of the fact that we're sitting here looking at some kind of idealistic principle that we as fallible human beings really can't determine one way or the other. We got to go to a break real quick here. We'll be back with Mark Hyman from the Conservatives Concerned About the Death Penalty. So stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate. This is interesting. We'll be right back.
Hey, I'll make you a deal. Give me 60 seconds and I'll give you directions to the Fountain of Youth. Okay, I'm joking. Well, kind of joking. No fountains, but youth, I got Nature's Youth and their premier anti-aging product, Nature's Youth RSF. With your sensible diet and exercise plan, Nature's Youth RSF can help you look and feel better. RSF is an all-natural amino acid supplement that supports your body to naturally increase HGH levels without any synthetic hormones. And elevated HGH levels can contribute to increased energy, improved libido, reduced body fat, and improved exercise capacity. Let's be honest. Who doesn't want to look and feel younger? Visit the newly designed website at naturesyouth.com or call 800-333-6923. That's 800-333-6923 and like them on Facebook and you'll be included in contest and exclusive offers. What a deal. Oh, speaking of deals, my time's about up. 800-333-6923 or naturesyouth.com. Who needs a fountain anyway? Call today.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
When I had a heart attack at 42, I was not sure what the future held. But a year later, the doctors could find nothing wrong with me and took me off all my medication. What did I do? I took a herbal mixture of garlic, cayenne, and a few other herbs mixed in liquid form. I now call this Extendovite. I would have never believed that a few simple herbs could actually change my life like they did. Now it's your turn to see what the powers of garlic and cayenne can do for you. For only $69.95 plus shipping and handling for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid, you too can begin on your path to better health. For more information, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822. Or visit our website at heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
I've owned my company for 14 years now, and I can tell you that payroll is a 4-letter word. I hate doing it. It eats up hours I don't have, and it costs me money I could be saving. But my accountant's too expensive, and I'm not sure who to call, but I know I need help.
We're Paychex, and we take all the hassles out of small business payroll. We save you time and money. It's easy. Call, fax, or give us your payroll information securely online, and we take care of the rest. We calculate the correct taxes, manage payments and direct deposits. We even send out your checks. Payroll doesn't need to be a 4-letter word anymore. We're so sure that we can save you time and money that we'll give you a month's payroll free. Just for calling 877-663-3830. Get 1 month's payroll for free. Call Paychex right now. 877-663-3830. That's 877-663-3830.
Hey, I don't back anybody unless I believe in them. And I do believe in the value of investing in gold and silver. And the company I trust to buy my gold and silver from is Swiss America. I've been working with them for nearly a decade. I trust them, and you can too. Swiss America will help you sort through and find the best options available when you're considering investing in gold and silver coins. Listen, for over 30 years, Swiss America has been offering Americans what they want in their investments: safety, liquidity, quality, reliability, and a potential profit. Gold and silver have a place in every investor's portfolio. So why not let Swiss America help you diversify your investment portfolio now? Call now for free information. 800-978-3907, 800-978-3907, 800-978-3907, 800-978-3907.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control of your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank accounts, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problem now by calling the experts at U.S. Tax Shield and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. U.S. Tax Shield offers a price protection guaranteed quote to get you protected today. U.S. Tax Shield is A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, so call now. 800-380-2906. That's 800-380-2906. U.S. Tax Shield. 800-380-2906.
And now back to the Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives. All right, hey, we're back, and this is the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives. Want to encourage you to check out our website, theconservativesyndicate.net. You can pick up this show. You may want to listen to this one again. This is a topic we haven't talked about here at the Conservative Syndicate, and I'm kind of surprised, really, because we cover just about everything. I guess this is one of those things that just kind of fell off our radar, especially the last year and a half. I mean, everything the last year and a half has just been, all the crap. It's just trying to deflect all the crap that's being thrown out there on a regular basis regarding the election and everything else. So, but a really interesting topic here. We've got Mark Hyman from the Conservatives Concerned About the Death Penalty. And I wanted to get into, again, trying to really grasp and get my head around the thinking behind your organization, Mark. I can definitely understand the plight of the family members that have to sit off to the sidelines and pretty much watch their family member, I guess, or loved ones, if we use the politically correct term, the loved ones, and have to watch this appeal process and everything that you're talking about. And I think, that might be something that I would look at and say, yeah, I can understand that. But the other side of me says that doesn't alleviate the person if they are guilty of the crime. Of course, if they're not guilty, yeah, I can definitely feel for that. But the idea that, my wife and I have these conversations all the time about, quote unquote, a mother's love. She's Filipina, and that's like the entire paradigm of the nation is everything that revolves around a mother's love. But, a murderer is a murderer. And whether your mother loves you or not, that doesn't change the status. So so that's where the conflict comes in. I look at one side and I say, yeah, I can understand this. I look at the other side and say, justice is justice. And that's the two seldom agree with each other if I'm putting that in the right frame of mind here. But kind of explain to my listeners here this whole idea how this does impact a family.
Yeah, well, the death penalty, when I looked at it and I was trying to give it another re-examination, years back, I saw a government program that risks innocent lives, although it did take some guilty lives too. It costs more than life without parole, but I wanted to know what I actually got. What bang for my buck did I get out of this? So I did a cost-benefit analysis and did a bunch of research, and I found that it doesn't deter crime, and it's actually very harmful on murder victims' family members. In fact, many murder victims' family members are some of our biggest supporters, and they're outspoken opponents of the death penalty because it's a long, traumatic process that's unsure, because 68% of death sentences are overturned on appeal. And then these poor people have to relive their loved ones' murders over and over again with every trial appearance, with every appeal, and with all the media attention that always hounds them, so they can never get closure that way. And in the end, these individuals are generally not executed, although sometimes they do. But when they are executed, they become a household name oftentimes, while the victim is generally forgotten. So this is not a system that helps murder victims' family members at all.
Okay, so you're taking it more from the perspective of the one that has been murdered, or the victim of the crime, rather than the family of the one accused.
Sure. I mean, I know family members of people who have committed crimes too. I mean, they live through that same process. But oftentimes you'll hear prosecutors say the death penalty is there for murder victims' family members and for the victims themselves. But what I've seen in my work is that's not always the case. There's a death case, a capital case in Georgia right now, where a priest had been slain, but he signed a declaration of life saying, "Don't ever try to execute anyone that kills me." But the prosecutor said, "We're going to ignore that." And these are things we see across the United States.
Well, that's a little bit of a stretch as far as political thinking, that somebody would think that far in advance. Don't execute somebody that kills me. I'm like, that's kind of a weird mindset. I'd have to entertain that one for a while. So when we talk about the idea, let's get back to this concept of limited government and within the conservative mindset, because that's really where my conflict lies. I don't really see a conflict with justice within the conservative mindset. But then again, I'm kind of, maybe I'm debating with myself here, just as we're talking back and forth here. But I understand the idea that maybe, this would be the ultimate overreach by the government. But would it not be, I think, more feasible and maybe more, better to execute it without all the extra stuff that you're explaining here, all the processing of appeals and the cost and everything else? Are we talking about a conflict between federal government stepping into the states' rights, or is this just something that you're talking about at a state level?
Well, it's both. I mean, there are mandated appeals that have to go through on the state level, and those vary from state to state, but they're still exhaustive. But there's also required appeals that go through the federal government. Those are the habeas corpus claims that can appeal all the way to the Supreme Court if they wish. But they can also be avoided. So there's some of the state appeals are actually automatic, and whether or not the person on death row wants to avoid it, they don't have a choice. They have to go through it. But when it comes to the habeas claims, those can actually be foregone, and they can volunteer for execution if they've gotten to that point.
Do you feel then, you just made a statement here that the phrase caught my ears, my conservative radar just went crazy. The idea that these death penalties, or somebody is convicted and judgment is passed and they are told that they are going to die, they're going to be executed, and these things reach up to the Supreme Court. How in the world did that ever happen? Why is the Supreme Court listening to stuff like this?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're the Supreme Court of the land, but these are usually innocence claims that go up there that have been appealed either by the prosecution or by the defense, and those disagreements can go all the way up to the top, where the Supreme Court has to say, no, we believe this person may be innocent, or we believe they were incorrectly convicted. You need to retry that individual again.
But I guess what I'm saying is, where in the Constitution does cases like this fall in the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court to begin with?
Well, we can talk about how everything has evolved ever since Marbury versus Madison, but it's the Supreme Court since that period has taken on a role of being the final deciding court with regards to criminal cases as well as civil.
Did we just lose him? Are you there?
I'm here.
I don't think so. Yeah, you're still here.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You stopped there mid sentence. I thought, or maybe you were ending the sentence. I didn't catch it. I see. That's when we talked earlier about reform. I think one of the things to look at here, if we do need to shorten, in my opinion, the appeal process. And one of the quickest way to shorten it, in my opinion, is to go back to the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, which I don't think, whether the Marbury case was, the license yet for the Supreme Court to step in whenever they felt they needed to. Constitutionally, I don't think that holds up. And so I would think, reform should be at the federal level, is to get the Supreme Court out of states' business. I guess that's would be the part of it that would rub me raw. That's where I'm rubbed raw at. It's like the Supreme Court really has no jurisdiction for this kind of stuff. And what we're seeing now is the evolution of the Supreme Court ruling on issues rather than cases. The same-sex marriage deal. There was no real case put before the Supreme Court. It was an issue. It was like, and they give an opinion on something that wasn't even ruled on. And so it's like we're becoming a country that we're being ruled and governed by the court, which to me is a major overstep and a major bastardization of the separation of powers. Does that make any sense to you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've seen an evolution in the Supreme Court, an evolution in interpretation of the Constitution for over 200 years now. So I completely understand where you're coming from.
All right. So, Joe, do you have any more questions here for Mark? I'm trying to dig a little.
Has your organization proposed any other legislation in the states at state levels that our listeners could be able to go to and research and find out about it?
Yeah, well, we've actually worked to repeal the death penalty in a few states with our coalition partners. So, yes, we've done that. We're going to have some more exciting news with more conservatives concerned about the death penalty, statewide groups rolling out. No, there's a lot of changes happen. So I want them to go to conservativesconcern.org, read up about us, and if they want to send me some fan mail, I always encourage that, and that'd be at info@conservativesconcern.org.
Okay, just one last question here before I let you go here, because I'm looking at your website here. You've got members and staff in Montana, Texas, Kansas, Kentucky, and Michigan, and Georgia. And I'm kind of surprised that there would be some type of coalition against the death penalty, especially in states like Montana and Texas. How are you guys going to get Texas to go along with the program?
Oh, well, they had a legislator recently say that, he doesn't think the death penalty works in policy and in practice. I think he supports it in theory, but when he compares what it does in application, he sees that it risks innocent life and that collateral damage just isn't worth it. And then in Montana, that's actually where conservatives are concerned about the death penalty first started. And they had a tie vote last time to repeal the death penalty. So it almost happened. We'll be back again this year. And, Georgia, have had 0 death sentences in almost 3 years, even though we're executing a lot of people. So there's a lot of changes, and it's being led by conservatives.
Yeah, it's surprising. I know several people live up in Montana, and every time I talk to them about politics, it's like I'm talking to the sheriff of Deadwood. It's up there, it's kind of like up there. We don't want the government up here in any way, shape, or form. We don't want any, it's kind of like every man for himself kind of thing. And I kind of, sometimes the things that come out of their mouths, I just like, wow, that's way beyond even me. I'm pretty much a hardcore conservative. Is like the individual is everything. But it gets me. I'm looking at these state names and I'm going, wow, that would be a stretch to get something like this passed in Montana and states like Texas, who really thinks they're their own nation anyway. So it's kind of interesting. Well, let's give you a moment here to promote anything and everything that you want to promote. You mentioned the site earlier. You might want to plug that out there again. And I think I'll put a link on our website to your organization here, because again, I'm not totally against it. I'm not totally for it. I'm kind of in the middle. I'm still evolving, if I can use the new progressive term for things, that kind of thing. So go ahead, Mark. Let people know how they can get a hold of you again.
Well, that's very progressive of you, so I appreciate that. But I please go to conservativesconcern.org or send me an email at info@conservativesconcern.org. And I want your listeners, when they go back and they think about our discussion, to remember that this is not a discussion about the death penalty in theory. It's about in practice. Do you trust our government with that kind of power? Are you willing to take a few innocent lives to kill several guilty lives? And are you willing to have your taxes raised over it? So that's what I would like them to think about, after they listen to your show, and I hopefully come back and listen to many more of your shows.
Well, I appreciate it, and you certainly put up a great defense for your thinking and your ideology in your organization. I'm very impressed. Very impressed. Joe, you got anything you want to say to Mark before we let him go?
No, I appreciate Mark coming on because very compelling argument. That he's made to be against the death penalty, and so I appreciate him coming on. And it's really it is a discussion that should be had, because again, if we're going to have, I would like to have the system kind of fix the system early on in the process as opposed to later on. I think sometimes we do have some technology that could help alleviate this innocents being convicted and sentenced to death. That's the one that gets me. I'd hate to have someone innocently killed by the state again, as Mark was saying, I don't really trust them to deliver the mail, and as we've probably seen in our recent history here in our nation, neither does the American people with the rise of FedEx and the UPS man. I completely understand and agree with that.
Yeah, and I have to be careful here because I live between two mailmen, and I hope they don't listen to my show. All right, Mark. Well, we appreciate it, and I'd like to have you on back sometime, especially maybe later on down the line here after we get the Supreme Court settled here, and get your take on some of the things that we're going to see go through there. So I really, really, really appreciate you taking time to come on.
Hey, John and Joe, thanks for having me on. I'd be happy to get back and chat with you guys and get back in the hot seat.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, we're going to do our short commercial break here, and then we'll be back, kind of tie up this segment and get ready for the next hour. Scott Faulkner will be with us, so stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate. Don't go away. There is an old saying, children should be seen but not heard. At no time is this more apparent than when politicians speak. TheConservativeSyndicate.net, the adults in the room. Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardoso. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardoso Live Daily, Monday through Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decisions concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosolive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosolive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did. History affirms a vibrant civil society thrives on freedom of conscience, religion, and choice. Any society absent these qualities stifles individual responsibility and accountability, thus enslaving its people by denying them their potential for goodness, creativity, and altruism. To that extent, oppression, coercion, and totalitarianism are multiplied exponentially. To counter such outcomes, the American Freedom Alliance was formed. The AFA is a nonpartisan, non-aligned movement which promotes, defends, and upholds Western values and ideals. The Alliance strives to build an international coalition of citizens of the West who together promote and protect moral values, democracy, and freedom. To find out more and become part of this valuable asset in the preservation of freedom and all its rewards, contact us at AmericanFreedomAlliance.org. That's AmericanFreedomAlliance.org. Let freedom ring. Now back to the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives. All right, hey, we're back. The Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives. I'm your host, John Matthews, along with Joe Hickos. And that was kind of an interesting conversation, Joe, don't you think?
Yeah, I was, it was very interesting. I was, it's not quite what I was anticipating, so it was kind of like, oh, okay, yeah. I can see the other side of the coin on that, and so, not to be closed-minded or anything, I can understand what was going on there, and so Mark made a compelling argument for his side of that, and I kind of see that. Really, it's. I messaged him is it's a paradox it's been going on since we started keeping historical records on things. The dilemma about what to do with someone that commits the ultimate act against another person, and how you as a quote unquote government treat that. As a society, how do you treat that? I mean, this has been going on for a long time, and so I completely understand. It's not an easy subject to get your head around, and I understand both sides of the justice scales on that. The victim side and the other side, that family issue. but it does come down to the one thing is you have to have something. And we never really did get into the deterrence factor on any of this. What would deter people from killing another individual? Because as we can see in Chicago, I think yesterday's 3 days into the new year, they already had 4 homicides. So
well, yeah, you know, I know that Mark wanted to discuss that, but I personally don't think there is such a thing as something that would deter violence like this. I just don't see it. I've been reading another book on this. I think I mentioned it to you, maybe off the air here, A Time to Kill, and it's a book about Christian pacifism. And I was looking at the section on the death penalty today. I thought, I just want to have everything at my disposal because I didn't know how this conversation was going to play out. And one of the things that the author of this book, who we're going to have on next week, was pointing out that he was drawing the difference, the timeline. It's like a timeline. And he called it the pre-flood disposition and the post-flood deposition of God. And he goes back to Cain and Abel. Cain murdered his brother Abel, but was worried about being murdered himself. And so God pronounced that anybody that took Cain's life would pay, that kind of thing. And he said it goes on later on in 4 generations down. Lamech kills actually 2 people, and uses God's ruling on Cain as justification that God won't do anything to him. And so he's like, when you didn't have that fear of death, there was no deterrent to keep from that. Well, that didn't really solve anything, because when God came down to Noah and the flood came about, it was because the world had become violent. There was too much violence. And so he said up until that point, God never really imputed any penalty for death, for murder, that kind of thing. He said that, and so then after the flood, one of the first things God does is tell Noah, if anybody kills anybody, murders them, intentional murder, not death by accident or anything like that, but intentional murder, then they are to pay with their life. And so he's kind of like, there's 2 different depositions here. And the thing he points out is, he said, why would God do that? He said, well, it seems that it's God's way of demonstrating that man really has no way of dealing with this. He really has no way of dealing with it within his own framework of thinking, within his own mindset. Because of the fallibility of man, he really has no framework to deal with things like this. And so left to his own resources, he'll always take the wrong path. And so that, so I kind of think, I don't know that there is any way of deterring violent crime outside of a complete remake of the moral fiber of the country. I think it's like Steve Forbes years ago made the comment that we can't outlaw abortion. You have to change the thinking on abortion so that you don't need laws, that kind of thing. So that's, I think outside of rebuilding the moral fabric of our country, I don't think we have any real way of deterring violence, because people are going to do that because that is the fallible nature of man, to want to act out whatever frustrations or whatever it is they've got. We've got to go to a break. It's time for the Edwards Notebook. When we come back, we'll have Scott Faulkner with us next hour. Stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate.
America being plagued by slobs or liars. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. On today's page from the Edwards Notebook, as an American, I am embarrassed by the millennial generation display of utter disdain for America, the rule of law, and common decency. However, the real blame for the young adult crybabies on college campi throughout our republic and the nighttime streetwalkers who seek to kill the American dream, steal our national joy, and destroy private property lies with the hippy-dippy era parents who raised them, along with the legions of government school educators who did their best to indoctrinate students against authentic American history, real science, Judeo-Christian ethics, and even the traditional family. It is comical to witness individuals who claim great fear over the possibility of Trump harming Muslims, immigrants, LGBTQ people, and minorities First of all, Trump consistently called out illegal immigrants, Muslim terrorists, LGBTQ activists, and other progressive groups who were not genuinely seeking equal participation in America, but are working to overcome our laws and ultimately destroy our way of life. And that's the truth of the matter. I'm Ron Edwards.
Blowing away the myths and revealing the truth. You can continue to blow away the myths with Ron Edwards on Facebook, Twitter, and theronedwards.com.
You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
Prices are for base buildings only. May not be available in some areas. Attention business owners, do you want a stimulus package that really works? Before you spend thousands of dollars more than you should on your next building project, listen to this. General Steel has a stimulus package designed to help you save as much as half the cost of conventional construction on your next building. As much as half. That's right. General Steel can save you thousands of dollars with a pre-engineered steel building designed for your business or church. How about a 50 by 100 foot building for under $30,000? So don't pay thousands more than you should without calling General Steel first and save as much as half the cost and time of conventional construction. With the projected demand for steel in Japan and China, prices may be skyrocketing.
877-927-3360. 877-927-3360. 877-927-3360. Term life insurance. It can be a powerful way to protect your assets and your family. You work hard to earn and save your money to build a nest egg for the future. Don't let it get wiped out because you didn't plan ahead. Take the time now and make a small investment in $500,000 or more in quality term life insurance. Call the Term Lifeline and let us shop the best companies to give you the lowest rates. We specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. Ask about some of our 10 and 20-year fixed rate plans with guaranteed rates. Call the Term Lifeline right now for your free insurance quote. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609. You owe it to yourself to protect your family and your assets. Make term life insurance part of that plan. Call the Term Lifeline right now. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609.
Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardoso. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardoso Live Daily, Monday through Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decisions concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosolive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosolive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
I think the big problem this country has is being politically correct. I've been challenged by so many people, and I don't frankly have time for total political correctness. And to be honest with you, this country doesn't have time either.
Yes, political correctness is out. American exceptionalism is back, ready to re-empower our republic as one nation under God by restoring our unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives, with your host, John Matthews.
The latter-day prophet, weighing against the hypocrisies of our time.
And Joe Hakos.
You want answers! I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
The Conservative Syndicate is comprised of some of the most informed pundits and activists available today. Together we seek to tear down the imaginary wall of separation between church and state through education, information, and engagement on the religion of politics and the politics of religion. And now, your hosts of the nationally acclaimed, globally syndicated Conservative Syndicate, John Matthews and Joe Hakos. And we're back, hour 2 right here at the Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives. I'm your host, John Matthews, along with Joe Hakos. And I want to, this is our short segment here. And I just want to take a moment to talk about something here that's just kind of, my pet peeve. My personal pet peeve, I think probably in the top 3 pet peeves that I have. If I have 3, I don't have that many, but I know this is one of them. This idea that the concept or the precept of white privilege, and how this, and I expect this to be inflamed and just really used over the next 4 years. Donald Trump, every decision he makes is going to be laid against this template of white nationalism. They're already doing that. You watch how the Obamacare thing, first it's going to be about the poor, and then it'll get into the race and everything else. It's just the way that the way the progressives work. They just don't let.
They're doing it right now with Jeff Sessions being Attorney General. I mean, what do you have? NAACP is doing a sit-in.
Okay, all right.
In places protesting against his nomination as Attorney General, because I'm sure he's going to bring back Jim Crow and everything, Yeah, okay, because, he's from the South,
Right. And 20 years ago, he made some statement about something that everybody's construed as being the sign of a KKK member, secret KKK member, maybe honorary chairman, that kind of thing. There's a course being offered at the University of Wisconsin at Madison by a guy named Damon Sajnanis. It sounds like a Middle East name, like maybe Indian or something like that. And the course is called The Problem of Whiteness. All right, now, I've got a lot of issues with this, but I want to just read you the little curriculum blurb that they have out here. Have you ever wondered what it really means to be white? If you're like most people, the answer is probably no. But here is your chance. Critical Whiteness Studies aims to understand how whiteness is socially constructed and experienced in order to help dismantle white supremacy. The course explores how race is experienced by white people, but it also looks at how white people consciously and unconsciously perpetuate institutional racism. Now, I want to give you the statement here. I'm going to read you the statement from the university spokesman. Okay? He says the course was not designed, it's an elective, it's not a mandate. All right? And yes, Joe. Not designed to offend individuals or single out an ethnic group. Now, I just read you the course description as to how to understand what it means to be white in order to help dismantle white supremacy. But it's not designed, according to the spokesman, to isolate or offend individuals or single out an ethnic group. It goes on to say, we believe this course, which is one of thousands offered at our university, will benefit students who are interested in developing a deeper understanding of race issues. The course is a challenge and a response to racism of all kinds. Well, then why isn't it called the problem of race rather than the problem of whiteness? And how does somebody from India teach about what it means to be white? So this whole idea here, Greg Bump, spokesman for the university, he didn't know of any criticism that's being handed down by any of the students in the university. Okay? All right? So, my point being, what a bunch of garbage. All right? If somebody started a course, the problem of blackness, okay, and we're gonna understand the problem of being black, living black, but we want to eliminate the paradigm that blacks are oppressed because of their color. The institutionalized paradigm is that blacks don't have a snowflake's chance in hell of making it because they're oppressed by whites.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Okay.
All right. So let's do a course on that. Let's do a course on how is it that the black community has evolved into this voting demographic that keeps voting for people that aren't going to help them anyways. We already saw that. We got a black president, first half-white president. He didn't do anything to help them. And if anything, he perpetuated the problem. He expanded on it. He's made racial division not since the 1964 Civil Rights Act was up for debate and passing. Or maybe even far back as the Civil War. We're now a very racially divided country. And it is because it's the problem of whiteness. Okay, that's the thing. It's if we white folk would just toe the line and just admit that it's our white privilege that's made us everything that we are, and even if that's true, I remember I've got a friend. We were up at a conference last month, 2 months ago, and one of the guys in the group was addressing this idea of white privilege, and he looked at me and goes, "Yeah, I'm privileged because I'm white. So what? I'm not sorry for it. I wasn't. I didn't choose to be this. That kind of thing." So anyway, I just saw the college courses are now in their social engineering projects, including courses now, I guess for credit, on how to deal with whiteness. All right, just so you know. We got to go to break. We'll be right back. We've got Scott Faulkner coming up. Stay with us right here. We're not arguing. We're explaining why we're right. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. Then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-790-5960. That's 1-800-790-5960. Again, 1-800-790-5960. Call now.
Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification require cancellation fee, auto pay, and paperless billing and other restrictions apply. If you can't see the difference, why pay the difference? Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Only Dish brings you the best in entertainment for less than $20 a month. Cut the cable and don't get directed. Switch to Dish because at just $19.99, Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. It's so simple. The same channels cost less with Dish. So since you can't see the difference, don't pay the difference. Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Get premium movie channels free for 3 months, starting at just $19.99. Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. Call now to save with Dish. Dial 1-800-600-1645. That's 1-800-600-1645. The same channels for less than $20 a month. Dish. Call 1-800-600-1645 for details.
Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardoso. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardoso Live Daily, Monday through Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decisions concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosolive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosolive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did.
Attention taxpayers. If you've received a notice from the IRS or state, do not ignore it. It's also a big mistake to try and handle your tax problem on your own. If you owe back taxes, it's a fact that the government has the power to take everything you own, including your home, business, wages, savings, and your freedom. But here's the good news. There's a special toll-free tax hotline set up especially for you. This tax hotline will tell you about new programs that are geared to help you dramatically settle, reduce, or eliminate what you owe. But you have to call now. Take down this number or put it in your cell phone. But call 866-761-0959. 1-866-761-0959. When you call, you'll get free information on how you can reduce or eliminate back taxes, including penalties and interest. You can also be helped if you have unfiled returns, a tax lien, wage garnishment, bank levy, or if you've been entered into a payment plan but can't make the payments. Don't make the big mistake in thinking you can ignore or handle your tax problem on your own. You can stop the collection process immediately. Call this special tax hotline today for free info at 1-866-761-0959. That's 1-866-761-0959. 1-866-761-0959.
Now back to the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives. All right, hey, we're back, and this is the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives. I'm your host, John Matthews, along with Joe Hakos. And we have with us now our newest, one of our newest, came on about the same time as Jonathan Dunn, Scott Faulkner. I think this is your third round with us, is it not, Scott?
That is correct. Third time's a charm.
All right. How was your holiday?
Very fine. Thank you for asking. Happy New Year to everybody. It was did some movie binging and some good food and some good friends, and that's just the way holidays should be.
Yeah. There's nothing like good food and good friends. All right. We have a couple of topics. We started one of them yesterday, but I wanted you to get your feedback on this. I'm kind of gathering my thoughts here. I'm still kind of tossing around the previous interview we had on the first hour about the death penalty. Kind of interesting. It hasn't quite flushed out of my head right now. Let me start out the simple way, then we'll just kind of ease into this. Obama, scorched earth policy right now. Everything he's doing just to try to lay as many landmines as he can. For incoming President Donald Trump.
Exactly.
What do you think? Let's go with the Arctic drilling thing and the Atlantic Ocean and the Arctic drilling thing. I'm hearing the media try, because of the fact that they're out there trying to trot the idea out that Trump's not going to be able to just overturn this with a stroke of a pen. And I think that that's probably what they're afraid of. Do you have any insight as to how this type of thing works?
I have not done a legal analysis of it. I'm not an attorney, but supposedly they're couching it that this is an executive determination versus an executive order, and that the 68-year-old law allows the president to do some sort of determination. And I've not read the base law about this. So even if that's the case, just because one president determines it, another one can undetermine it. And if need be, if Congress has to pass something, again, this stuff isn't coming off of Mount Sinai on 2 tablets. So it's, anything that is written by man can be unwritten by man. So this whole thing about it's over is ridiculous.
Yeah, well, that was my thinking. My thinking was more along the lines of this would be a great first litmus test for Congress if this involved having Congress do something about it. If Trump can't just say, okay, as you said, I'm going to undetermine it, and Congress could basically move to eradicate the law or repeal it or eradicate it, whatever the term is, and then that would be I think a very good test for Congress to see if they're actually going to go along with Trump or not. Don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, the premise of underlying everything Obama's doing is Obama somehow thinks we're a European parliamentary-based system where he goes into becoming leader of the opposition and gets to scream at Trump the same way the Labour Party gets to scream at the Conservatives in the House of Commons in England. And it doesn't work that way, but I think he's trying to force it to work that way, and I think the liberal media is going to try to help him work it that way.
Yeah, it would make sense. I mean, we had mentioned at the beginning of the show that this whole thing from this point forward, this is like all this gobbledygook about the election, whether Russia influenced it or not, and this, that, and the other. It really isn't about Hillary Clinton. It really isn't about losing the election. It's about protecting Barack Obama. Everything, because if Obama's acting the way he's acting, you can make damn sure it has nothing to do with the Democrat Party or anything else. It has to do with making what he did stick, rather than, it's all about either his agenda, his image, or the fundamental transformation of America. But this is not about protecting America, the middle class, the Democrat Party, or even Hillary Clinton. That's the way I see it.
He's the most self-absorbed person we've ever had as president, and there's been a pretty healthy competition for that.
Yeah, I was saying, the psychosis of this guy, to me, it's almost psychotic. I can't remember feeling this weird about a president since Richard Nixon, and Nixon was just paranoid.
Right.
But this guy, Obama, I mean, you talk about delusion. Somebody ought to dress this guy up in a Napoleon Bonaparte uniform. It's like just amazing how he just thinks, hey, I've said it, and therefore it is, and you can't do anything about it. And it's amazing. It's amazing. Joe floated the idea yesterday about a last-ditch attempt by Barack Obama, I guess a recess appointment of Merrick Garland. Is that his name, or is it Garland Merrick? I don't know. One or the other. Irrelevant.
Garland.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually,
the Supreme Court a year ago, actually one of the last 2 years ago, one of the last major Scalia cases, and Breyer's the one who wrote the decision. It was a unanimous decision regarding the National Labor Relations Board, where Obama just went way over the top on recess appointments, and they basically said that Obama way overstepped himself, and that unless Congress is out for like 2 weeks, I mean completely out, not a recess, but a true adjournment, intercessional they call it, that a recess appointment is not really constitutional in any way, shape, or manner. And this was a unanimous, I mean, all 9 justices, even all the liberals, said this is way over the top. But there are some scholars out there, usually Harvard Law and some other great places like that, that are saying that, and actually the time has come and gone, where you had the intercessional on Tuesday, where there was like about a 30 to 60 second period where the House and the Senate were actually out of the previous Congress and had not ramped up the current Congress, where Obama could have appointed Garland or any one of the other 100 federal vacancies on the judicial bench, and they would be able to serve as a recess appointment for a year, which could be very devastating, but that window's come and gone.
Okay. All right. So it would have, if he had employed it, it could have been a, what are you going to do about it now kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that these people serve until their replacement shows up, or they have an expiration date of the calendar year that they're appointed in. So if he had tried to pull it, it would have had some impact, but I think he would have completely shown that he's ripped up and burned the Constitution already. This would have poured acid on it and done other things. So thankfully he missed the window or chose not to use it.
Yeah. I think it was the latter. He chose not to use it because I don't think he really cares about the constitutionality. Can't a Supreme Court justice be impeached, Scott?
Of course. Any federal official can be impeached.
So that could have been a possibility. Could have been a constitutional crisis, and then we could have had an impeachment of that individual if it came to be that. But thank goodness it didn't come to that.
Well, the other piece is that even if he had put Garland in, it would have been an empty victory, because a justice who did not hear the oral arguments cannot rule on the case. And pretty much all the big cases that they will rule on, usually like late May and early June before they go out for their session, all the oral arguments have occurred. So even a Trump justice will not be able to affect this current term.
Okay, yeah, and that makes sense because I think Kagan went through that. I think she came on and there was some rulings that were coming down and she was not allowed to participate.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Now, in line with that, we started a conversation yesterday about the Russian hacking thing, and my thought is generally this. My thought is that Obama and the media and the leftists have trotted out this narrative, put the sanctions against Russia for the sole purpose of waiting to see if Donald Trump rolls them back so that they now have something to throw at Trump for the next 4 years, that he's basically a Russian in disguise.
Yeah, and this whole thing is so bogus. I mean, first of all, let's start with the basics. They are throwing around the term hacking as if that's the generic term. What happened was the DNC emails were leaked.
Thank you.
And then number two, the Podesta emails were phished because Podesta was stupid enough to answer. We all get the Nigerian prince is going to give us $2 million to squander or whatever. The one that he fell for was, there's something wrong with your credit card and you need to re-enter your data, and he did it. And what's really wild, the password he uses is password. Wow, real secure guy. And so that was a phish. And again, Assange was on Hannity last night. He said it wasn't the Russians. These were third parties that had nothing to do with it, with the Russians. And they then went to WikiLeaks. And so a phish is not a hack, and a leak is not a hack. So, but the media and the Obama folks and all their acolytes are running around. Everything got hacked. Everything got hacked. A hack. I mean, I used to run an IT firm. Yeah, and hack is like a burglary. It's a break-in.
Yes. The part that bothers me about it, Scott, is they're saying our election system was hacked and it wasn't hacked. And the stupidest thing I heard, one of the stupidest things I heard today, was someone calling the Democratic National Committee part of their government. And that is just blatantly just insane.
Well, I'm sure they believe it.
Yeah, I mean, it is not. They are the Republican Party and the Democrat Party are not part of the government. They are independent organizations.
Right.
Yeah, what I found so interesting about it is even as ABC, who posted this article a couple days ago about the sanctions, Obama issues sanctions for alleged Russian hacking, and you just explained to us it's not really hacking, but even there they use the word alleged cyber assault, and so they're still not coming out and saying absolutely unequivocally, at least some of the media outlets. Now, Obama's telling, our intelligence agencies, which is another issue. The intelligence agencies which have determined that Russia, quote unquote, hacked into our system is with the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI, who previously said there was no evidence of it, but because it conflicted with the CIA, then I guess somewhere along the line, James Comey says, well, I owe Barack one because Hillary lost the election or whatever. It's so convoluted in the language using, and depending on who you're talking to, the degree of whatever infiltration happened. And here's my $64 question has always been, who the hell cares? If Russia did influence the election, who cares?
Well, part of it is, it's one thing if they were sitting there distributing money and busing in illegal aliens like the Democrats do. But what's really wild, because it seems to get weirder as the hours tick off, that Obama has not received an actual classified security briefing on the quote-unquote hack by the Russians. He has not gotten his own briefing on it. And in fact, Trump's briefing has been delayed till Friday because supposedly some of these security services are saying they need to build their case before they brief Trump. So this whole thing has just gone down quite a few rabbit holes.
Yeah, and I'm my contention is the entire narrative has been created for the sole purpose of not only delegitimizing Trump's election, but giving fodder to the media and to the left. From this point forward, Donald Trump is an ally with Russia. That's what I'm seeing. That's how this is going to play out, in my opinion. What do you think?
Well, what's interesting is this is the same media that didn't raise an eyebrow when Obama did nothing about Crimea, nothing about Eastern Ukraine, nothing about the shooting down of the Malaysian, the Danish Malaysian plane. And so things that were legitimate issues that should have caused a huge stir and were ripe for sanctions. Yeah, Obama did nothing, which is why the Russians keep pushing.
And not to mention interference in the elections over in Israel with Netanyahu. We got to go to a break. We'll be right back. We've got Scott Faulkner, Joe Hakos, and myself. Stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate.
Hey, I'll make you a deal. Give me 60 seconds and I'll give you directions to the Fountain of Youth. Okay, I'm joking. Well, kind of joking. No fountains, but youth, I got Nature's Youth and their premier anti-aging product, Nature's Youth RSF. With your sensible diet and exercise plan, Nature's Youth RSF can help you look and feel better. RSF is an all-natural amino acid supplement that supports your body to naturally increase HGH levels without any synthetic hormones. And elevated HGH levels can contribute to increased energy, improved libido, reduced body fat, and improved exercise capacity. Let's be honest, who doesn't want to look and feel younger? Visit the newly designed website at naturesyouth.com or call 800-333-6923. That's 800-333-6923 and like them on Facebook and you'll be included in contest and exclusive offers. What a deal. Oh, speaking of deals, my time's about up. 800-333-6923 or naturesyouth.com. Who needs a fountain anyway? Call today.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
When I had a heart attack at 42, I was not sure what the future held. But a year later, the doctors could find nothing wrong with me and took me off all my medication. What did I do? I took a herbal mixture of garlic, cayenne, and a few other herbs mixed in liquid form. I now call this Extendovite. I would have never believed that a few simple herbs could actually change my life like they did. Now it's your turn to see what the powers of garlic and cayenne can do for you. For only $69.95 plus shipping and handling for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid, you too can begin on your path to better health. For more information, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822. Or visit our website at heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
I've owned my company for 14 years now, and I can tell you that payroll is a 4-letter word. I hate doing it. It eats up hours I don't have, and it costs me money I could be saving. But my accountant's too expensive, and I'm not sure who to call, but I know I need help.
We're Paychex, and we take all the hassles out of small business payroll. We save you time and money. It's easy. Call, fax, or give us your payroll information securely online, and we take care of the rest. We calculate the correct taxes, manage payments and direct deposits. We even send out your checks. Payroll doesn't need to be a 4-letter word anymore. We're so sure that we can save you time and money that we'll give you a month's payroll free. Just for calling 877-663-3830. Get 1 month's payroll for free. Call Paychex right now. 877-663-3830. That's 877-663-3830.
Hey, I don't back anybody unless I believe in them. And I do believe in the value of investing in gold and silver. And the company I trust to buy my gold and silver from is Swiss America. I've been working with them for nearly a decade. I trust them, and you can too. Swiss America will help you sort through and find the best options available when you're considering investing in gold and silver coins. Listen, for over 30 years, Swiss America has been offering Americans what they want in their investments: safety, liquidity, quality, reliability, and a potential profit. Gold and silver have a place in every investor's portfolio. So, why not let Swiss America help you diversify your investment portfolio now? Call now for free information. 800-978-3907. 800-978-3907. 800-978-3907. 800-978-3907.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control of your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank accounts, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problem now by calling the experts at U.S. Tax Shield and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. U.S. Tax Shield offers a price protection guaranteed quote to get you protected today. U.S. Tax Shield is A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, so call now. 800-380-2906. That's 800-380-2906. U.S. Tax Shield. 800-380-2906.
Now back to the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives. All right, hey, we're back. The Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives. I'm your host, John Matthews, along with Joe Hakos. We've got Scott Faulkner with us today doing his weekly segment. As we were at break, one of our other contributors, Audrey Russo, shot me over an article here from patdollard.com, and in it, it's an excerpt from an article that was printed at Washington Examiner yesterday, and in it, I guess apparently Dick Schumer makes a comment about President-elect Donald Trump taking on the intelligence community, and he uses the phrase, "They have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you." And apparently that's a phrase that alludes to the fact that the CIA is in the assassination business. So the takeaway from this is Schumer saying Trump is treading into serious dark waters, deep waters, by taking on the CIA and questioning their assessment of what's going on with Russia. What do you think about that, Scott?
Well, the CIA has become a totally political vehicle, especially under Obama. But their track record they missed every single nuclear test for every new country getting a nuclear weapon since the Soviet Union's in the 1950s. And so they've not always been very good, but in the last 8 years, they've been absolutely terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. They don't have a very good track record. And and as far as Chuck Schumer goes, I'm going to really upset a lot of animal rights activists, but Chuck Schumer is nothing but a sewer rat. So you consider the source on any of this. So sorry, Chuck.
Well, apparently Schumer got briefed very well by Harry Reid before he left.
Yes.
All right.
So he's going to pick it up a few notches, let's say.
Yeah. Let's see how this plays out here. Okay, let's move on to Israel because, as I said yesterday, to me the two are intertwined. The situation with Russia, the relationship with Russia, I think nothing would piss off the left more than having Donald Trump actually develop some kind of relationship with Vladimir Putin, maybe akin to Ronald Reagan's relationship with Gorbachev. Now, we're talking about two different personalities when we talk about Gorbachev and Putin, but the idea that, Trump seems to think that he can work out some kind of relationship, maybe, at least go back to some kind of, stand away from each other, if nothing else. Just you go your way and I go my way, that kind of thing. I don't know. I have no idea what Trump has in mind regarding his the United States relationship with Putin. But now we go over to Israel, which is another one. And the Middle East, of course, Israel is the key to the Middle East conflict, at least from the perspective of the left. And this abstaining from a vote with the UN that basically condemns Israel for defending itself. And I think I pointed out last week the 229 resolutions the United States has abstained from since 1948 that have been passed anti-Israeli resolutions, and I think only 14 times they abstained from voting, and all 14 times was when Israel had defended itself and the UN wanted to come after them, for some act of defense, and the United States just pulled back and said, nah, not going to vote. So anyway, you had something to offer on this, Scott, in terms of the history of the Palestinians. I think I know where you're going with this because I've heard it before, but I want to give you the mic here.
Okay, thank you. A lot of people remember Barbara Tuchman. She was the Pulitzer Prize-winning writer of Guns of August, which is probably to this day still the finest book on the origins of World War I. That was done in 1963, but in 1956, one of her very first books was called Bible and Sword. And that goes back literally to the Bronze Age, talking about the Palestinian region. And of course, it was known as Judea, going back to almost 1000 BC. In fact, the first Syrian cuneiform tablets talk about Judea. And she brings it all the way up through the Balfour Declaration after World War I, which really caused the current mess because he tried to be even-handed. And her book, which I recommend to everybody, again, is called Bible and Sword from 1956. Barbara Tuchman, one of the finest historians who've ever written, especially in the 20th century. And the area after the Crusades got over, right around 1300, was almost completely empty. It was abandoned. Nobody lived there. In fact, there have been photos of Jerusalem from like 1890s, and it's just a big ruin in the sand. I mean, hardly anyone even lived there. And then the Zionist movement in the 1870s started to move Jews back into their homeland. And then Balfour said, well, because the Arabs helped with the revolt, the whole Lawrence of Arabia thing, we want to bring them back in as well, kind of even-handed. And so they were Arabs living in what was then the British, again, not till 1917 did it get called Palestine. It was always called Judea. It was called, under the Ottomans, it was the Mastuferite Jerusalem. I mean, it was never Palestine until Balfour anointed it this as they carved up the Middle East after World War I. And then the reason we have Palestine and quote unquote Palestinians, there's no Palestinian language, there's no Palestinian culture. It is all just Arabs who happen to live in the non-occupied areas, Israeli-controlled areas of what used to be the British Mandate of Palestine. After the 67 war, everyone remembers June 5th to 10th, 1967, Moshe Dayan, everybody, I mean, everyone ganged up on Israel. Israel cleaned everyone's clock. And that summer of 1967, the Arabs said, okay, just like with the 48 war, just like with the 56 thing with the Suez Canal, it's a David and Goliath thing. You know, poor little Israel, all to be these huge Arab countries and armies, and Israel defeats them. We have to create a new David and force Israel to be the Goliath. So they took the population in Gaza and the West Bank that was now occupied by Israel and said, these are a separate entity. These are a people. These are a culture, and big bad Israel is crushing them. And so this was an entire PR effort backed by the Soviet Union to basically counter Israel's success in the region and basically countering Israel's successful survival in the region. And the liberals have embraced it ever since.
Wow, that's an interesting.
Absolutely, yeah. And also remember, the Egyptians were a Russian surrogate in the region then, and so Syria, and so you've had the U.S. and the Russian thing going on there. So it's never been quiet. I remember this when I was growing up in school, and it's been the same thing since then. But then again, what's Obama want? He wants them to go back to the pre-1967 war.
Yeah, insane. 10 miles wide between between the eastern edge of Israel in some places and the Mediterranean. Yeah, that really is going to work.
Yeah, that's not going to work, and we know it's not going to work. And as as we message back to each other, I do recall Israel proposing to give land to the Arabs, and they refused it.
Yes, because they want it all.
Yeah.
Yes, they want Israel to not be there is what they really want. And so this two-state solution that John Kerry is like, you either be Jewish or this or that, and he's putting out these ultimatums. It's like, I'm sorry, John, there is no two-state solution. There never was.
People need to remember that the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem was a close friend of Adolf Hitler, and they actually throughout the Balkans raised Arab Muslim stormtroop units to work again, to fight in the Russian front, but also to help the SS units round up Jews. And there's tons of pictures. You can Google image Mufti, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, and there's pages upon pages of pictures of him with Hitler at his birthday, of the Mufti actually reviewing these Muslim stormtroopers with SS uniforms on during World War II. People don't remember that these people, I mean, they have been as anti-Jew as the Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I always try to relate this whole thing about Israel. I really have to, just because of the way I think and the way I've been brought up. I always keep everything within a biblical perspective. And the biblical perspective, in as far as the Bible goes, is that Jerusalem is the center of the world. That's because that is the place that God chose to put Israel. Okay, and therefore they were the ones. Whether your views on Jews or whatever is irrelevant here. The point being is that God determined that this people, who actually were not Jews to begin with, okay, very much like the Palestinians, as you were just explaining, God takes a civilization or a man out of a civilization and says, this is what you are from now on. And from you, I'm going to build this nation. And through this nation, the Savior will come. And we know the story there. So I put everything. And then you got the story of Ishmael and Isaac. Ishmael represents the Palestinian state. The Iran, Iraq, all the 1040 window over there. And so it's always been this big debate about who owns the land, because Ishmael was legally the rightful heir, but Isaac ended up getting it, that kind of stuff. And so my thought has always been, this is never going to get resolved until the return of Jesus. That's how I look at it, But the political expediency that's used by everybody outside of this theater to advance their own agenda. I understand what the conflict is in terms of the Middle East. I understand what the Palestinians, they want the annihilation of Israel. That's what people don't mention that anymore. This is all about annihilating Israel, exterminating every Jew from the face of the earth. And that's what it's all about. But then everybody else, all the other players, the United States, Russia, all these other countries, all trying to play into it to one way or the other, whether it be allies or enemies or neutral or whatever. And so it's another one of those things that just becomes this conglomerated mess, and it just needs to be really simplified. And it's simplified, to me, very, very simply put, if, as God put, those who bless Israel are blessed, and those who curse Israel are cursed. And so I look at it like that. I know that may not have a lot of relevance to the conversation here, in the context that you're talking about here. But here's my question for you, Scott. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking that with the Russian hacking, just step back to the Russian hacking allegation right now, and we say, okay, the Russians had tried to influence the United States elections. And they did it through hacking or the allegations. I'm using their terms, their language, not what we know to be the truth. But their thing is, okay, Russia hacked in order to influence the elections. Now, I'm wondering why where's the outrage that Barack Obama sent money and his campaign manager over to help organize against the re-election of Benjamin Netanyahu? Why is there no outrage there?
Well, Chris Plant always says it's good to be a Democrat because you always can have this double standard. And some people's the other comment is, if there weren't for double standards, the Democrats wouldn't have any standards. And so it's and that's really the case. I mean, they can sit there on one day and say this is okay, because Netanyahu is against Obama and against the nuclear deal and with Iran, and we got to take him out, and we'll bring some of our top A-list operatives from the Democratic Party over there and fund them to help his opposition. But WikiLeaks puts all this stuff out, which again, not a single Democrat, not a single person quoted in any of those emails from all the different sources that WikiLeaks put out ever said any of them were fabricated, ever said any of them were false. These are all facts, and the American people should have the facts. Now, Assange, again, on Hannity last night, said not a single source was Russian that knocked on his door with these documents. And I would have to believe him. In
fact, from any state.
Right.
No state actors.
Well, again, we know the DNC ones. And again, if two Republican chairmen of the Republican National Committee resigned in sequence under a cloud, that would have been Time Magazine front cover for the next year.
Yeah, story of the year.
And yet it happened to them, and it was leaked emails from a Democrat within who is supposedly a pro-Bernie supporter who was grossed out by the different ways they fixed the game against Bernie Sanders. And so it was a leak, a legitimate leak, and no one talks about it that way. They all say, well, he's all Russian hacks, and it's BS.
Yeah.
The thing that's real problematic is the landmines that Obama is placing in front of Donald Trump now. And, not only there with the Russians, but with Israel. And, because Trump has said he proposes that Israel should move their capital to Jerusalem and have what they're supposed to have because they are a free country. And now, you got this Russian thing and the mess that Obama's made in Syria with the Russians and everything else, plus the Crimea, Ukraine, and the litany of other things that you mentioned before with the shoot down and all that other thing. Obama, where was the outrage? There was no outrage.
Yeah,
I think.
Go ahead, Scott.
I think that Trump is going to leapfrog all of them. I think when you start to go back and look at who he's appointing for his cabinet and his ambassadors, a worldview that Trump has, a world strategy that Trump has, is going to be jumping 10, 20 light years beyond the current crowd in Washington trying to box him in. When you look at Tillerson and his relationship with Putin, when you look at Iowa Governor Branstad and his relationship with the Chinese leadership, I think what's going to happen here is that Trump, once these people are in place, they're going to go off into some closed doors, and there'll be a grand coalition, at least for a time, to clear out the outliers. We're going to get rid of ISIS and Al-Qaeda and take out Iran on one front. We're going to take out the North Koreans on the other, using any number of carrots and sticks that China can do on North Korea. And that's a whole another discussion on what the options would be there. And I think he's going to wants to clean up the world landscape of all the outliers, and then let's have everything else. We'll duke it out over trade and economic supremacy, but let's clean out the outliers first. And I think that's going to be Trump's gambit during 2017.
Joe.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. Well taken, because I don't think Trump's going to even worry about what the Democrats in Congress howl and moan and just whine about whatever Trump's doing. Like I said yesterday in the show, Vladimir Putin's the guy in charge of Russia, and that's the guy you have to deal with, just the way we had to deal with Gorbachev, Brezhnev, what's his name? The crazy guy at the UN beaten down with his shoe.
Khrushchev.
Yeah, Khrushchev. There you go. All those guys. Those were the people you had to deal with. You didn't have to like them. You didn't have to admire them. You just had to deal with them. And I think that's all Trump is doing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Trump, his primary objective, is getting the economy back. And he has to clear all the garbage out of the way. I agree, Scott. I think that's a very viable analysis, is get all these distractions out of the way so that we can eliminate all the landmines out there so that we can work on the economy and try to, the very people that we're sitting here talking about being our enemies, at least economically, let's be friends.
Yeah, I think he's going to come at it from the point of view it's going to benefit both sides of that issue. It's going to benefit the Russians in the U.S. and the Chinese in the U.S.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, very good assessment, Scott. I like that. We'll put that. Okay, that's officially on record now. So now we get to watch and see if it. Now we get to watch and see if it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if once again we're ahead of Rush Limbaugh on the curve here. And all right, Scott, we're out of time here. I want to give you time to promote your site, your blog site, and anything else that you're doing out there that you deem necessary to talk about.
Sure, I appreciate that. I'm of course on LinkedIn. I do a lot of articles for them as well as for Newsmax dealing with the Trump transition, and they all have kind of a Trumping theme to it. There's a new one out on basically looking at some of his military ideas and actually the military dogma that he might apply to his first 100 days across the civilian agencies. There'll be a new one coming out next week on really the death of the current media environment, which is long overdue and is very necessary. And on my blog, which is Citizen Oversight on Blogspot, we're going to have a whole series of local issues dealing with West Virginia coming up because there's a lot of citizens standing up against entrenched interests and with some major law cases before the West Virginia Supreme Court. So the blog spot on citizen oversight is about how local citizens, normal people, can stand up to power, hold power accountable, and have their voices heard. So there'll be some interesting new case studies coming out there in the next week or two.
Okay, one last shot across the bow here. Do you think that Trump is going to announce his Supreme Court appointment before or after he gets in office?
That's a good one. I would think it'd be nice if he did it ahead of time, just to again stir the pot. I think he's got the 20 people he's already mentioned as his short list. Any one of them would thrill real conservatives and real constitutionalists. I think that'd be great to overload the system and just simply have as many people being run through the Senate for confirmation at one time as possible. And that's actually in my column on trumping the military way. I talk about how you run the guns with as much as you can, because the guns can only fire so many times and hit so many targets. If you put enough through at one time, most of them will get through. And I think that Trump really should be doing that.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping he does it before. Also, if nothing else, I'm looking forward to the coverage of the inauguration, because I'm going to be watching. I want to watch the faces of Bill and Hillary Clinton.
Well, unfortunately, I think that at least on CNN, MSNBC, and probably the usual CBS, NBC, ABC, they're probably going to do a split screen and show the 500 demonstrators who are screaming about Trump, so I think they're going to try to upstage him any way possible. So watch for that.
Yeah. Okay. All right, my friend. I appreciate you coming on again. Always great, good stuff. We enjoy having you as part of our panel.
Thank you very much. It's always it's a good mental workout.
Okay. All right. We'll talk to you next week then. Okay, guys, we're coming up at the end of the show here. And we're going to continue this thing on Israel tomorrow. I got a couple other things I want to really kind of drill home here, and we got some loose ends that we'll be covering. And of course, 24-hour news cycle, anything can pop up here. I'm waiting to see what Obama's latest little scam is going to be. I'm sure he's cooking up something. He gave a press conference today, so I'm sure, or some speech. Gave another speech today, and in front of the military. I always like watching him in front of the military because nobody claps, and he has to keep milking the audience, trying to get some kind of reaction out of them. Anyway, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Visit our website, theconservativesyndicate.net. We thank you so much for your loyalty, for listening to us, making us the show that we are, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of the Conservative Syndicate, the nationally acclaimed, globally syndicated, politically incorrect talk show that seeks to tear down the imaginary wall of separation between church and state. We want to make you aware you can find and access all our show archives at our website, theconservativesyndicate.net, as well as our broadcast stations and times. That's theconservativesyndicate.net. We so appreciate you taking the time to tune in, and we so look forward to continuing to bring you the best in uncompromised talk radio available on the net today. And remember, folks, it doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down in life. It only matters how many times you get up. I'm John Matthews, along with Joe Hako, signing off until next time right here at the Conservative Syndicate. God bless you, and may God continue to bless America.